Hey everyone, Felix from Nintendo Life here, and today we're here to review the remake of Mario vs Donkey Kong for the Switch. This review was written by the wonderful PJ O'Reilly and converted into this video by me. Okay, let's see. The original Donkey Kong first released into arcades in 1981, where it became a smash hit that also happened to introduce us to two of Nintendo's most enduring mascots in the form of the big agitated ape and some springy little plumber guy. The game in this very first incarnation involved jumping around simple walkway platforms, dodging barrels, and moving ever upwards to smack said angry ape and rescue Pauline. Fast forward to 1994, and Game Boy players are treated to an updated version of this arcade masterpiece. Donkey Kong 94, as all the cool kids called it back in the day, added some fresh mechanics that introduced a little more variety, platforming, and puzzling to proceedings. And it is this Game Boy adventure that laid the mechanical groundwork of 2004's Mario vs Donkey Kong on Game Boy Advance. Okay? Good. And now we have the remake of that game in the form of Mario vs Donkey Kong on Switch. At the outset of this particular adventure, Mario is alerted to a robbery at the toy factory, and it isn't long before he's on the tail of Donkey Kong, who's scurried off with a sack full of mini Marios, which you'll need to collect. Each level is split into two distinct sections. The first area sees you hunt for a key to open a door, and the second where you'll need to find your mini Mario waiting beyond a bunch of enemies and environmental obstacles. Complete the first 6 stages of each world, and you'll unlock the 2 final challenges comprised of a mini Mario level where you'll need to collect 3 letters to make the word toy, and then the final boss face-off against Kong himself. Rather than indulging in his typical super style of freedom platform bounding, in Mario vs Donkey Kong our Italian hero is much more grounded and heavy to control. Movements are more purposeful, and you'll need to focus on the type of jump, somersault, and so on that's required to pass obstacles and keep moving forward. Timing is key. Waiting for the right moment to move, and even jumping on your foes works a little differently than you might expect. Mario can no longer dispatch an enemy by bouncing on its head. Instead, you can now jump on them as if they were a platform, lift them up into the air, throw them into each other or onto spikes so you can stand on them to get across. The 2004 version was a solid enough game, offering a good mix of exacting platforming action, light puzzling across 6 fun worlds, and some pretty cool variations on the age-old boss battle between Mr. Mario and Mr. Kong. This shiny new Switch remake serves up all the content from its predecessor, here presented in a graphical style that brings it in line with modern Mario titles. It also adds 2 brand new worlds, and more on those in a bit, plus versions of each world, returning expert challenges, casual mode, time attack, a big fancy orchestrated soundtrack, and most importantly, a new 2-player co-op mode. Now, if you've played the original on the Game Boy Advance and you're diving in this all over again, especially solo, brace yourself for the fact that the original 6 worlds, beyond the touch-up in the looks department, are exactly as you remember them. There haven't been any changes to note on how these areas play out. It should also be pointed out for newcomers that this game, for the vast majority of its running time at least, is 100% aimed at younger players. It's not particularly difficult in the default classic mode, you will rarely find yourself pausing for thought, and it's only once you get to the post-game content here that the head-scratching becomes a possibility. Those brand new plus versions of each world, which you can bounce through once you're done with the campaign, challenge you to a slightly tougher version of each level, which require you to guide a single mini Mario through the gauntlet with you. It adds just enough spice to give you pause from time to time, and from an adult's perspective, it's a much more engrossing experience when the heat gets turned up slightly. Time attack mode, as expected, serves you with the vanilla stages with a timer to see how quickly you can rerun areas, no surprises there. Expert levels, which we don't want to ruin here, are the biggest challenge you can unlock, and you'll need to have beaten the game before you get into them. Adjust your expectations if you're an adult is always saying. You will not be mentally taxed in any way until late into this package. But this isn't about the adults, so let's not get too hung up on the lack of difficulty here. If you're expecting a firm challenge for a seasoned player, it's time to just pick up a different game. This one is all about the younger gamers, and fittingly, the star addition to this remake happens to be the new cooperative play mode. If we sound a little surprised, it's mainly because we've gotten used to the second player's role being severely downgraded to simple support in some recent Mario games. Here though, player 2 gets a decent amount of control with total freedom of movement and objectives to take care of, meaning that in co-op, Mario vs Donkey Kong finds the magic it needs to elevate it from a decent experience to something easier to recommend. Playing this game with a loved one, a friend or family member has been a really good time, and by adding secondary keys to pick up in levels and some new obstacles such as crumbling walkways, there's enough teamwork required to ensure movements of hilarity and chaos as the level's timer runs out while you struggle and fail to get your act together. Speaking of timers, the new casual mode removes the need to rush, a perfect choice for your first run with a younger gamer, with death in this mode seeing you return to life in a protective bubble, giving you the space and time you'll need to figure your way through a level at a child's pace. The two new worlds, Merry Miniland and Slippery Slope, follow exactly the same format as the old ones, while flinging in a few new enemies and obstacles, and they've been crafted to fit into the overall flow without appearing obviously new. There are no great big leaps, advancements, or fancy modern tricks, just more of the reliable same. And hey, as long as you're aware of the easygoing, child-focused nature of this one, more of the same is just fine. Fine isn't a word you want to see too much in a review though, is it? It doesn't inspire confidence, and we use it here because at every stage of Mario vs Donkey Kong, there's a feeling that not enough thought has gone into utilizing all the potential of Mario's revived skill set. We talked about the slower, heavy movement employed already. The game wants you to slow down and think, to use your moves, but it just never forces this side of things enough. It never gets to the level of clever or challenging that really lights a fire under things. 99% of levels can be worked through without considering your moment-to-moment movements much at all, and so it feels a little inessential once you step outside of playing it with kids. An example of this, take how Mario can walk on his hands to avoid damage from falling debris with his shoes. We're introduced to this mechanic in a tutorial that has bricks falling down on our location. This never gets investigated any further, and levels stick to chucking a few bricks down from time to time. There's no requirement of combo moves or skills or think fast from one input to the next. Again, perhaps you'd expect that from a game targeting a younger audience, but we would have liked to see more of the all-ages Nintendo magic across the full running time of the campaign, around about 5 hours to the initial credits. On a more positive note though, all of the new additions do make for a more robust package than the 2004 original, and one that performs flawlessly in docked and handheld. The revamped art style and orchestral soundtrack make it all look and sound very appealing and slick, and overall this comes off as a safe and solid experience for younger players playing solo or for co-op play with an adult. It might not set the world on fire then, but Mario vs Donkey Kong does enough through its new co-op mode and post-game challenges to garner a fairly hearty recommendation from us. We here at Nintendo Life give Mario vs Donkey Kong on the Nintendo Switch a 7 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, why don't you find all the mini Marios and get them to all collectively click that subscribe button. And don't forget to check out our website nintendolove.com, where you can find reviews like these but in written form. Stay safe, play some Mario vs Donkey Kong, and we'll see you in the next one. Felix from Nintendo Life, out.